Alright, what is poppin', people? We are here with another Pokemon Spotlight. This time we're gonna go over Mienshao. Before I get into this, follow me on twitch.tv/IamLordRabia. Link in the description. We gotta get the 50. Anyhow, we're gonna be doing a Spotlight on Mienshao. Now, Mienshao, ever since it dropped, it's pretty much been just one of the most consistently great Pokemon that NU has. While some people think that it's ban-worthy, mostly because of how, like, Regenerator makes it just a pain in the ass to try to wear down, I view it as just probably the best mod in the tier. It's a super reliable revenge killer because you got base 105 speed backed with a Choice Scarf, and it's a really strong Pokemon as well, so generally, you're not having to weaken stuff too much before you can pick it off with a CC. And even just expanding on the point of close combat, I think Mienshao getting CC this gen has been absolutely huge for it. Because you used to have to allow a high jump kick, and that's, while you always want to scout versus Mienshao anyway with something like Protect, just to see if it's, locking whatever it's locking itself into with its Scarf, CC does not come with the drawback of taking a whole bunch of recoil damage if you're blocked by the Protect, whereas high jump kick does. This also makes Regenerator sets, I feel, just so much easier to justify. Now, you could very easily still run HJK with the Regenerator in previous generations, but I feel like the incentive to go Reckless is a lot less now, because Regenerator is so good for a Pokemon like Mienshao, whose primary job is to pivot a whole bunch throughout the games, spread knockoffs, pick off weakened foes, or at least just force them to switch out where you can. I think Regenerator is just a little bit better synergy-wise, and that's not to say there aren't some, alternative options you could go with if you really wanted to use Reckless, but I feel like the addition of CC just really opens up Regenerator to have even fewer drawbacks, and I think it just synergizes better with, I think Regenerator synergizes a lot better with CC as a whole. And when we look at Mienshao, it's not the most diverse of options, right? It's a very linear Pokemon, so if you're looking at your standard Scarf Mienshao, you're getting something like this, right? The top 3 moves are always mandatory. You need CC so that you can revenge kill things. You need U-turn to, your actual pivot. And U-turn also comes with the great benefit of actually doinking a fair few of the potential CC switch-ins. So something like Celebi, which could be an okay check otherwise, is absolutely... Celebi's just not a check. I'm not willing to call it one, at least, to Mienshao. It's a very bad check, at least. You pop Celebi with U-turn. You pop Espeon if it tried blocking a... I don't know why Espeon would ever switch into you, but just in case. You pop that. You can pop something like a Starmie. Zoroark, if they were getting greedy, I guess it's staying in. Predicting a knock. That's getting blasted as you pivot out. U-turns just got pretty decent coverage overall anyway with CC. You get to pop all the Psychic types, which Mienshao otherwise can't really do unless you go for Knockoff. And Knockoff is potentially a little exploitable. Most teams should have a good... Every team should have a good Knockoff Absorber. And once you get rid of whatever the Absorber's item is, you'll generally want to be able to just start pivoting around from there. And Knockoff as well synergizes really well with CC. Make sure that Ghost types can't switch into you for free, because otherwise something like, say, a Rotom or a Golurk is risking taking a whole bunch of damage as they get knocked. And then when you look at the last move slot, you've got a couple options. Poison Jab, I think, is the most consistent. It lets you deal with all the fairy types running around, like Sylveon, Defensive Comfy. I think those are the only real common ones. You got Sylveon, Defensive Comfy, and then kind of Silvally Fairy. I still see a fair bit of that as well. But there's also Stone Edge as another option as well. And as opposed to hitting, say, fairy types, now you can hit the flying types. So you're looking at targeting Mantine. This does a little bit more damage to Sigilif if you want to just immediately pop that, as opposed to letting it maybe somehow live a knockoff. I doubt it does. But just in case, you can make sure it's dead. But in general, yeah, you're looking at hitting flying types. Mantine, Ninjask occasionally when you're at a nose, Noivern. Are there any other relevant flyers down in P right now? I don't think so. Not that I'm scrolling past and immediately picking up on, so we'll say probably not. Oh, Scyther, that's another huge one. Like, yeah, you generally just want to knock Scyther anyway, but it's a good CC switch in, and then it can just take advantage of you being locked into CC, just U-turn out. So if you can just immediately catch it, then that's really good. And Life Orb Mienshao does the same exact set with the same exact options in the last slot. The difference for Life Orb Mienshao and Scarf Mienshao, obviously, is that this variant is a significantly better breaker. And it really takes advantage of how people don't... Like, we don't have fighting resists or immunities, for the most part, that really handle Mienshao well if it can switch up moves. Now, I will say a big advantage of Mienshao is its speed, letting it outpace Pokemon like Salazzle, Inteleon. What are some other fast mons? I guess like other Scarfers like Scarf Tyrantrum. And so you do lose out on the speed, but Pokemon like, say, Mantine, if you're on Stone Edge, they're no longer very competent answers. You knock them if they come in, or CC them, and then you just Stone Edge them. Something like Sylveon, if it switches into a Poison Jab, it's getting 2-hit KO'd like even more assuredly than if you were a Scarf set. And if you're a Life Orb set, then you're just putting it like super out of commission. Life Orb Mienshao also obviously benefits from Regenerator, makes it so Life Orb recoil and just other forms of recoil, or passive damage as a whole, like Hazards, Rocky Helmet, maybe an occasional weak attack if Mienshao's getting hit by like a Sucker Punch from a physical Zoroark, for instance. Just helps keep Mienshao active throughout the rest of the game. I guess a nitpick you could say with the two sets is just put the 4 EVs left over in defense. It doesn't really matter, but that's probably a slight optimization worth considering. Now I have seen, I don't know if I'd count this as, you know, a quote-unquote other option, but I have seen Swords Dance Mienshao before. I believe it was like CC, Knock, Rock Move, Swords Dance. It was very early in the month that it was run, so I don't know if it's still doing much of anything anymore. But it's probably not the worst ever. It lets you have a little bit of sweep potential. I think Poison Jab over, what's it called? Stone Edge is probably a lot better. The more I think about it, I think Stone Edge's range of targets is a bit more specialized. And Poison Jab at least has some neutral coverage against the potential Stone Edge targets. Like, you know, you could still get some chip off on Mantine and poison it. So it's not like the worst thing to have happen if you can't just immediately hit it. And then when we look at other options for Mienshao, one set does come to mind. And this is Assault Vest, especially with the banning of Slowbro Galar. The tier might desire some pivots that can take hits from things like Goodra, for instance, a little bit better. And I'm not talking about, like, take a hit comfortably or anything, right? But things that can scout out those really strong special breakers, just see what they want to lock into, and then at least get health back. Now, this EV spread, I don't remember if this is what you needed. I believe this gives you enough special bulk that... Not Bish. I believe this spread gives you enough special bulk to take a single Spec Draco from Goodra, and then you could obviously give it more special defense if you want that to be considering Stealth Rock. But this isn't a bad pivot by any means. It's obviously a lot weaker than these two sets, and doesn't have the cleaning potential of Scarf. But I do still think that it's a fine option. I think you can consider Fake Out as well on this, if your team really needs the extra speed. It lets Mienshao retain some of its some of its revenge killing capabilities. And if you want to talk about like Fringe beyond Fringe, you know, the button clicker set himself. I mean, I'm just gonna put this in here. I think we all know where this is going. I don't know. I feel like CB Mienshao is just not worth it. I think Life Orb's just significantly better. But is Reckless High Jump Kick with a Choice Band fun to use? Of course. And I do think there are, you know, worse ways you could grief yourself, so I'm not going to highlight this, by the way. I've been dealing with some dude messaging me all day and then getting consequently, like, banned. And I would not be surprised that's the same dude. I guess I don't need to hover over Lycons here. So when you look at, in terms of Mienshao answers, a generally just speaking thing about pivots and how you like to deal with them. So, historically, the best way to deal with a pivot has been passive damage. That can take many forms. It can take the form of weather, like sand and hail. It can be entry hazards, like spikes, stealth rock, toxic spikes, what have you. It can be rocky helmet damage or rough skin, you know, that kind of contact damage that certain Pokemon like to inflict. The problem with Mienshao is Regenerator. Now, I've mentioned this before, but it's important to mention again here for context. Passimian in Gen 7 is the most apt comparison I think that exists to Mienshao in Gen 8 NU. The premier pivots of the tier, the premier revenge killers, have some pretty devastating wall-breaking options as well. The problem, though, ends up being that Mienshao's access to Regenerator lets it not care about the passive damage. It kind of bothered Passimian. You know, you could chip away at Passimian with, like, Rocky Helmet Comfy in Gen 7, which, not a very common set, but existed in some degree. You could chip away at it with Rocky Helmet Palisand. You could force chip damage on Passimian a lot more, even, like, Hail from Mega Abomasnow. This is damage that was going to stick throughout the whole game. But Regenerator complicates that, because it means you can't really rely on passive damage as easily versus Mienshao, especially with the Scarf set and the Life Orb set. Those sets aren't trying to take hits. You know, something like Assault Vest, you can maybe force damage on a little bit more. But these other sets that are more hit and run, or, you know, just based significantly more around advantageous positioning to generate offensive momentum or KO opportunities, they're much harder to pin down, and as a result, Regenerator just gives them so much more longevity. And of course, Regenerator still enables AV Mienshao to stick around significantly longer than it has any excuse to. But I don't think the impact is as great. If that makes any sense? Maybe it is, and I'm underrating AV Shao, but I think in terms of complicating counterplay to an offensive threat, I think Regenerator is significantly more profound in its effect on how you need to manage Scarf and Life Orb Mienshao. But if you're looking at counterplay, defensive comfy, you know, your standard defog set, physically defensive, with a Rocky Helmet, that, you know, you switch into anything barring Poison Jab, and you can at least, you know, again, force, or try to force, some Helmet Chip that'll probably just get Regenerated off, but you take any hit other than P-Jab well and force Mienshao out, and you get a free turn to U-turn, so that's not bad. Cresselia is also a pretty good answer to Mienshao, outside of, you know, U-turn being a pain and knock chipping you real hard. You're a CC resist, and if you're the sub-CM Cresselia set, then Mienshao locking into CC is a free opportunity to get a sub up and start setting up. Sylveon, we briefly mentioned earlier, Poison Jab is not fun for this, and even losing its leftovers or heavy-duty boots can be a bit of an issue. But you switch into CC well, and you can get opportunities to go for Wish or Heal Bell away status from your team by switching into CC, and even Knock to a lesser degree. Mantine doesn't like losing boots, but it's still an okay Mienshao answer if Stealth Rock are off the field. You know, you eat up CCs really easily, roost away the damage, or just force Mienshao out with an Air Slash. Palisand walls Mienshao quite literally forever. I would say this is the most consistent defensive answer. You also obviously can go Colbert to take less damage from the knock, or if again you want to try so desperately to force damage, I guess you could go Helmet. I guess. Scyther, it's very much like Mantine in that you don't want to get knocked. Also, what does this button do? Okay, that just adds. But Scyther is very much like Mantine in that you don't want to get knocked, but you're still a good CC switch in, and you get some free opportunities to do things, right? When you switch into CC, you can roost away damage, you can sword stance up, go for a knock on whatever's switching in, or you can just get a free chance to pivot. Now, Sigilif, very, like, situational answer, because Sigilif's bulk isn't good. You don't want to get knocked. U-turn even's doing a fair bit to you. But Mienshao locking to CC, because Sigilif's such a devastating breaker, giving it these free chances to come in and start firing off Life Orb boosted attacks, or even just setting up with Calm Mind, can be pretty dangerous. And you got Silvally Fairy. And this isn't a super common Pokemon, but it's a great knock absorber. And the only move it really cares about is Poison Jab. So you generally can switch it in pretty easily, at least on the first time. And then, play the 50-50 game later on between Poison Jab and anything else. And I guess I mentioned, you know, Palossand being the best defensive answer. These two Poison types here are also really great. Vileplume, obviously, because Effect Spore. That could potentially cripple Mienshao for the rest of the game if you get a paralysis or a sleep. It can wake up, but And you don't really care about anything Mienshao can do. I don't think Aerial Ace is run at all, and I don't think it would do enough to you anyway. And you get free opportunities to just fire off really obnoxious Sludge Bombs or Strength Saps to deal with Copperajah or Bronzong if those are around. Strength Sap much more crippling the former than the latter. Wheezing, especially like neutralizing gas with a helmet, is really good. I'd been using that earlier in the month, back when we had all the, you know, Guts wall breakers and like Heracross and Machamp. And neutralizing gas Wheezing's also cool because it means Mienshao cannot get Regenerator Recovery. So the damage you get on it with helmet actually ends up sticking, which is pretty cool. And of course, you can set up T-Spikes as Mienshao's U-turning out or whatever. And then I guess last, Xatu, very situational answer. Again, its bulk just isn't great even when invested in. And so knockoff, if you have an item, I think it comes close to 2-hit KOing you if you switch into the knock, get the item removed, and then take another knock. I believe you can out-roost the knocks and get back up to like 60-ish%. But it's not a fun 1v1 encounter. And if you're always itemless with Xatu, i.e. you lose your heavy-duty boots, or are just running itemless so that you can switch into non-Anchor Shot Delmise better, then you're always dealing with Stealth Rock Chip. And that just means you're 2-hit KO'd by knock. Yeah, this is Mienshao. I would say it's the best Pokemon in the tier, I think, right now. I mean, in terms of contenders, who do you really have that can match how impactful Mienshao is through its pivoting, its breaking, its just overall utility? I can't really name anything that comes close to it. I mean, there are some options that are up there, for sure. Like, Milotic is an incredible Pokemon, Bronzong Copperajah in terms of Stealth Rock setters, Noivern as a defogger, even just other breakers like Porygon Z and Pangoro. These are all phenomenal Pokemon. But I feel like Mienshao's just stranglehold on the niches of, like, revenge killing. Or really on the niche of revenge killing and how good it is in general really helped to just establish it as above everything else in the tier. And I would say it's not even close, right? Because we have a whole bunch of Pokemon that are just super duper good. Even ones I didn't mention, like, say, Cresselia, for instance. There are people really not liking that mon around. Brief opinion on that, I think it's balanced enough. If it's Sub-CM, then it's Mono Moonblast. And I would really like to believe that you can check a Cresselia without a step. Anyhow, there's more to it than that. I'm just being facetious. But we got a lot of really good Pokemon, and I still think Mienshao is just far and beyond the best. It would be my only S rank if we did the viability rankings thread today. Because I just don't think anything matches it. I don't think anything comes close to offering as much as it does. While we have a whole bunch of other Pokemon that are hyper viable, I don't think that they are on Mienshao's level. Maybe it's not like a Primal Groudon deal wherein, like, you're actively griefing if you don't run it, or you are somehow managing to run a team that just doesn't fit Primal Groudon on it. I'm not sure if we're at that kind of point, but it's Mienshao is just so effective at what it does. And I wouldn't be shocked if RU eventually takes it. I believe it's really good at RU, but until that happens, I'm gonna just keep using Mienshao. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And again, reminder at the end of the video, please go follow the Twitch and subscribe to this channel. We're very close to 250 subs. Can we do it in, this is what, like 3 days and another quarter of a day as of the time I'm recording this? Maybe. But not without your help, so. Hey man, help a brother out. Until next time though, I hope you enjoy yourself. I hope you're enjoying life. And I'll see you then. Peace.